We have buttons, but they do nothing. Let's make them do a thing. So, when I click the delete button, I want it to remove the LI, right? And remove the thing from the array too. I want it to remove the dang flick. So in order for this to happen, we have to start listening for that click, right? So we have to add an event listener to that button. Now the other event listener we have on the page for submitting the form, we started listening as soon as the page loaded. Should we start listening for that button to be clicked as soon as the page loads? No, it's not even there yet, right? And if we add it to the template, the clone will not have an event listener of its own automatically. So we need to start listening after we add the flick, right? So in render list item, we can also start listening for the button within the clone to be clicked. So we can again use item query selector to search just within that one for a remove button. Item dot query selector. It's a button with a class of remove. And what do I want to do with it? I want to add an event listener. What's the event? Click. And yes, click also fires when you tap something on a touchscreen. It also fires when you tab to it and hit enter. And what do we want to call? Some function that doesn't exist yet, right? So we'll probably call it this.remove flick or something like that. Let's write it. Remove flick. Don't forget your comma. It's still another property on the object. We know it's going to get an argument, right? An event object is always going to get passed in if it's an event handler. We don't have a default behavior that we need to prevent. There's no default behavior for a button that isn't a submit button, right? So don't need to do that. So let's forget about the array for the moment. How can we remove that LI from the page? Who all made this work? Who all made it at least remove the LI from the page? All right. Zach.
What I did is I got the target of the button, and then you got its parent's parent, which would be this item, and then
Okay.
you got, I think, remove child is what it was, and then you give it the parent of the target.
Okay. So it's the LI that we need to remove, right? So we need to find that thing. And we know the event target is going to be the button. And the LI is an ancestor of that, right? It's not the immediate parent. There's something in between. So we could find the parent's parent. That would mean we'd have to change the code if we change that structure in any way. It'd be super cool if there were a way to just basically start looking at all of its ancestors until it found one that matches, kind of like query selector does. So item.querySelector just keeps looking at the descendants of this item until it finds one that matches. And there is something that does that. It's called closest. Element.closest. It warns us it's an experimental technology. Check the compatibility table. Okay, everything except Internet Explorer. In most of them, it goes several versions back. I am okay with that. It also works, it definitely works in Safari. I'd be shocked if it doesn't work on Android because it's worked in Chrome for a long time. I am okay with using this. I don't want to have to guess how many levels back it is, and I don't want to do it manually. So Element.closest method returns the closest ancestor of the current element or the current element itself, which matches the selectors given. So that's kind of cool. It checks itself first before it wrecks itself first, and then it checks its parent, then its parent parent, then its parent's parent, until it finds a match, and then it returns that. Thank you, you two, for smiling. So, remove flick. Okay, we have the target. That's the button, right? So we say closest. It doesn't matter that it's an LI. What matters is that it's the thing that represents the flick, right? Since we put a class of flick on there, I'm going to look for that. Then if we change it to a div, this wouldn't break. So that's the list item. I'm going to do this on 2 lines just to make it clear that that's what we're finding. And then remove removes the object from the tree it belongs to. There is also remove child. But there's also just remove. We don't need to know the parent. So that's kind of handy. We can just say list item dot remove, and it's gone. Can it be? Let's remove the middle one. That's always tricky. Deleted. Go us. Let's celebrate by committing. Remove flicks from the DOM, but not the array just yet. That seems worth committing by itself.
Okay, so is there one way to make that delete function that's just a lot better than the others? Because the way I went through it is I made a constant delete button, added an event listener to it, made the function which I gave the let's see, forgot the word. Starts with an A. It goes within the function parentheses.
Arguments?
Yeah, the argument max, and then I said if the app.max is greater than or equal to 0, then remove, then item.remove.
How could you click? How could you, if that function only runs when you click it, how could it ever be something different? Right? The function only happens when you click it?
Yeah.
And ideally, I don't pass anything in here yet until I start worrying about the array, because this event object that already gets passed in contains all the information I need. I just need to know which delete button it was. Then I can find the thing that I need to remove just from that. So you can see, for one thing, this is only 2 lines long. So it's really, really simple. And simple is good. So we won't make it any harder than it has to be. Until it has to be, which is right about now.